call to order the May 12th, 2025 meeting of the Harris Township Board of Supervisors. So please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have two sets of minutes here to approve, April 14th and April 23rd. I entertain a motion to approve them.
Approve both of those, sir.
Second.
Okay. Any comments, questions on the corrections on the minutes? All in favor, say aye. 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 Okay. Now it's time for meeting for citizen comments. If any members of the public have something they'd like to address the board about that's not on the agenda this evening, you have an opportunity now. So when you come to the mic, please introduce yourself.
Sir. Hi, my name's Jake Tanis from Potter Township. I'm a supervisor there, and I just wanted you to, I don't know if you people are interested or not, but we've had no luck at all to get them to put an exit in up in our PCI district up there. And I didn't know, because you're going to have a lot more traffic coming in and out through here. And originally, I believe that's one thing that you didn't want was more, when they were going to put the original connector it was to keep the traffic out of Boalsburg, correct? Kind of. But I don't know if it would do you any good to talk to them, or, you know, it's your decision. I'm just making you aware that they said, well, it's not going to be that much, but as that's our PCI district, and we have approximately 140 acres that could be developed there, which then could have quite an impact on your traffic coming in and out of here. But anyway, it's just something for you to consider. Okay?
Thank you, sir, for your
Hey.
comments.
Question for you about that.
Yeah.
Do we know the impact of like not having, I mean, I've read some things that people have made comments about, but do we have an actual impact? Do we know the impact of not having an exit there?
Yeah.
Are most of the people coming from State College, a lot of the business coming from a different way, or does that traffic on the road actually, is it more like an advertisement because you're driving by it?
Well, I think that there's several businesses there, like Kubota, the
Yeah.
Best Line, and that. Yeah, that would be advertisement, and that more or less it would probably, they may have to change the way they do business in the future. But that's, like I said, there will be more traffic coming down through here to get back around, and, you know, it's your decision. Not, I'm just would like to bring it to your attention. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
My partner and I, Dan Alters, have been putting up birdhouses in Yoder Memorial. And I wanted to actually say a little bit more about the Yoder Memorial, because I was one of the people who actually got that going a long time ago, maybe. I can't even remember. It was somewhere after 9/11, so it had to be maybe 2024 or something like that. 2004. And it's important to know that the Yoder Memorial is only there because a group of people decided to take advantage of DCNR's program, that if we raised half the money, we could buy it. And at that point in time, Tom Songer was going to, had his dibs on that land. He wanted to buy it, and we intervened, and he wanted to charge $350,000, I think, for the land, but we ended up getting it. Once we raised that, he actually started working with Chris Lee, and raised the price to $600,000. So you wondered how in the world would a small group do that? but it is possible because of DCNR and their program that provides half of the money that you raise, but still was pretty difficult to raise that money. But we did. And so that was a long time ago, and with all the invasives and things, I'm really glad that that it was taken over by the Parks and Rec pretty recently, and is under their tutelage now with getting rid of some of the invasives. And if anybody would like to do that, I could lead a group to do that, because it really needs. It's got a lot of bittersweet, tremendous amount of bittersweet that's been pulling down the trees. So I don't want to spend too much time, but I thought you would need some background on that. That this became an 17 or 18 acre park because of citizens in this particular area, and now we have been wanting to put up birdhouses. And I'm going to let Dan talk about the birdhouses, because that's his specialty. He used to be the president of the Lycoming County Audubon Society.
Well, thank you, Dorothy, for that introduction. We got a hold of the fellow up at Parks and Rec that does a lot of the management work there, and asked for permission to put birdhouses up. And he said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So we manufactured and installed 6 birdhouses up there, just simple birdhouses, about the same size you'd expect to see bluebirds and similar sized birds use, ones that they're cavity nesters. So on the 3rd, we walked up there and checked them out, and we found one that had 8 eggs in it. If you can imagine my surprise, I went up, started to pry the door of the birdhouse open, and a chickadee flew right into my face. Happened again today with a different bird. But the chickadee had 8 eggs in there already. And unfortunately, unfortunately, that's what it looks like today. Apparently a long-armed critter like a raccoon got up on top of that box, reached in and began scooping out the eggs. We found some of the nest material on the ground and some of the broken shells. So that was unfortunate for the chickadee, but that's what happens in life. We also found a couple of nest boxes with twigs in them. And it's hard to tell whether there's eggs in there or not, because you can't even get the door open all the way. There's a little door that swings up and down, and it has a nail in the front so it doesn't accidentally come open. But wrens pack them full of sticks. And this is what it looks like when a wren occupies a nest box. I had no idea if there's eggs in there or not. We did find a nest that had some eggs in it. Dorothy was able to get her fingers up in there and feel the eggs. Birds don't care if you mess with their nests, as long as you don't break it or rip it apart. They have relatively no sense of smell. You can take the babies out and look at them and put them back in again, which I've done many times with bluebirds. And they don't care. They have a really terrible sense of smell, so they don't even notice that there's some strange smells in their nest. We did have a bluebird nest, 5 eggs, and we checked on that again today. All right, there was one Dorothy sent you too. Anyway, 3 of the eggs had hatched, and there was these tiny, tiny little featherless birds in there, and 2 more eggs yet. And mother bluebird was hanging around, and she was very anxious. We were peeking at her brood. But all 6 nest boxes have seen some kind of activity. The one that's closest to the entrance only has a few sticks in it, and it probably gets too many people by it. And it's not in exactly a good location. Actually, none of these nest boxes are in a good location for bluebirds. I'm kind of surprised we got one. They would like to have a nice big green lawn with low-cut grass to do their hunting. And there's very little mown lawn up there. Where the trails are wide is probably the best spot to put a nest box, and that's what we did. And do you guys have any questions at all?
That's a great idea.
It was nice, and if people go up and walk by, there's pretty good chance you'll see a few more birds since they're able to successfully nest up there. All right, thank you.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Before you go, do you want more nest box or bird boxes up there? Would you like more?
I'll be honest with you, we think we already saturated the
Okay,
place.
that's all I needed to know.
Yeah, we went up and looked way ahead of time, and we figured 6 was probably the most you can put. Bluebirds like to have a good distance between their boxes. And like I said, there's very little hunting territory for them. So what's up there is pretty premium for each bird. All right, thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else here for public comment? No. Close the public comment. Any new agenda items of a de minimis nature could be added at this time, if any board member? Nope, didn't think so. So I'll get right on to township business. So first thing is a CNET update, and Cindy Hahn, CNET Director, is here to present that for us.
Julie, I think that Alex is going to present tonight your new board rep. So I will sit and allow him to present, and at the end, between the two of us, we'll be able to answer any questions.
Hi, so I'm Alexander Schmidbauer. I was appointed the CNET rep for Harris Township, and I serve on the CNET Board of Directors. Next slide, please. So in 2024, CNET had a grand total of 527 programs, which is really impressive because CNET has a really small staff. They only have 4 full-time staff, 3 part-time producers, and I was just told they have 4 and sometimes 5 interns. We actually have a couple new interns here today, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, that's okay. So in February 2024, we actually started a closed captioning initiative. It's optional. Most people actually signed on to it, which is really exciting. It just costs about $70 per hour for members. 14 of the 17 members have opted in. Next slide, please. In 2024, CNET captured 12 of the Board of Supervisors meetings, 11 of the Planning Commission meetings, and then a couple other things here and there, like the Spring Creek Watershed Commission meetings, Memorial Day in Bollesburg. And then we also paid for about 25% of the Penn State meteorology programs that they capture. So Harris Township is responsible for 30 of the programs CNET puts out. Next slide. So in addition to that, we used about 24 bulletin board messages, which they're valued at like 1/10 of a program. So about 2.4 programs were used for the bulletin board. We use those for stuff like agendas and for like the like this kind of meeting here. We'll post that, as well as like for the planning commission meetings. Next slide. So all in all, in 2024, Harris Township sponsored 32.4 total programs. We're slightly up since 2023 from 6.1% to 6.2. Next slide. Looking over here, we're definitely trending upwards slowly. We're really taking the full advantage of CNET, it seems like. Next slide. All of that is relevant because CNET actually uses a rolling average across 5 years to figure out like the dues Harris Township pays CNET. So like the rolling average we have right now is 5.5%, or sorry, it's 5.7%. Next slide. And we can see right here, here's Harris Township, and then here's the average that all the other members are paying into for programming. Next slide. Comcast pays CNET for Comcast pays Harris Township franchise fees. In 2024, it was about $117,000. 23,000 of that went towards CNET dues for Harris Township. So like the taxpayer for Harris Township isn't actually like directly paying for CNET at all. In addition to that, Comcast pays CNET for capital funding about $35,000 a year. Next slide. Right now, we are also working on Chantel franchise is coming in. It's like a Comcast competitor, right? They don't have any customers yet, but they have paid $21,000 in capital funding, so that's going to be really good for CNET. Next slide. So there's quite a few different ways to tune into CNET. The big one is Channel 7. CNET shows the Board of Supervisors meetings a couple different times throughout the week after it's aired. In addition to that, it's streamed live on YouTube. That's how I usually watch them personally. And the Planning Commission meetings follow a very similar schedule, just on alternate weeks, but they are not streamed live. Next slide. So in addition to that, you can go to cnet1.org. The programs remain available on demand. They're chaptered, they're clickable, there's agenda items. They do a really good job about separating this stuff out. I know when I actually applied for this role, one of the first things I did before I interviewed in front of all of you was I actually went to the CNET stuff and looked at what you expected out of the people when you interviewed them. So that was really helpful for me. Next slide. Currently, you can go back about 12 months without paying extra for it, but I think CNET just got some funding. Now it's going to go 18 months back, right? Because we're paying for more storage. So there's a lot of different members, content on the YouTube channel right now. Next slide. You can also watch on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV. Next slide. We have a lot of tutorials available online for people to figure out how to do that. It's really, really intuitive. Next slide. So this is the online programming data for some big events we had for the Harris Township Board of Supervisors. The average number was 51 viewers on cnet1.org, as well as 49 viewers on YouTube. But the interesting thing is, we actually don't know how many people are tuning into Xfinity or Comcast to watch these, because that's proprietary data. So it's potentially an even larger amount of people really utilizing this service. Next slide. And then another big thing that I've talked to Cindy a lot about that I think is really cool is CNET puts on candidate interviews. We reach out to federal, state, and county offices. People we're running for, mayors, boards, and councils for CNET member municipalities like yourselves. They do really, really awesome interviews that they post online. We get in contact with local journalists that do the interviews, and they do a really, really good job. Next slide. Here's some just different pictures of CNET. Yeah.
That's it. Any questions?
Are your closed captions, you use sign language on those?
Oh, no, the closed captioning is done through AI.
Oh,
Our server manufacturer makes the service available, but it's all AI. It's fairly good, and we're very happy. And the $17 per hour is an excellent price. In-person closed captioning by human beings can be $250, $300 an hour. So,
it showed you have 14 or 17 people using that system?
yeah.
That's not a charge for them, is it? They're not charged for that, are they?
No. The 14 of the 17 members, like Harris Township, are paying for it.
Okay.
The residents don't pay.
Yeah, that was the
Yeah,
question.
yeah, the residents don't pay at all.
Good. Anybody else?
Thank you, and thank you again for all your support through the years, and we'll see you next year. Bye.
All right, Route 45 scenic byway designation. So we have a couple gentlemen here from Happy Valley Adventure Bureau that would like to speak. Oh, Guy? Leslie, up? Leslie's a woman, okay, excuse me. Anyway, so if you come to the mic, please, and,
Well, good evening. I'm Leslie Kistner. I'm the Public Relations Director for the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau, and I'm joined by Josiah Jones, who is our Chief Operating Officer. For those of who aren't familiar, the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau is the destination marketing organization for Center County, and we are here to hopefully get Harris Township support for our efforts to designate Route 45 in Center County as a scenic byway. And this slide is state's language for the purpose of the byway program. So support local planning efforts to achieve byway designations, protect and enhance the visual quality of designated routes, maintain byway resource qualities along designated routes, educate residents and visitors about the history and culture of the Commonwealth through its byways, and promote tourism and enhance economic development potential on designated Pennsylvania byways. The Adventure Bureau, we believe that there are significant historic conservation and economic benefits to such a designation. And I just want to talk a little bit about our efforts up to this point. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So just a little bit of history. We are working with Dr. Mari Forbes in the National Travel Center. She is an expert on byway designations. She has worked with projects in Pennsylvania, but also nationwide. And in January of 2024, we applied for a federal grant to fund our work with Dr. Forbes. And at that time, we did have to secure letters of support for the grant, and so we were able to receive those letters from various municipalities, Congressman Thompson, the Penns Valley Conservation Association, and then several businesses along the Route 45 corridor. Ultimately, we were not successful in securing that grant funding, but we decided as an organization that, again, we think there's tremendous value in that scenic byway designation, so we decided to move forward with the effort, and we have decided to go the legislative designation route, and I know Josiah is going to talk more about that in a little bit and what that means, but we need the support. We still need the support, and we very much want the support of the municipalities along the corridor, along with the businesses. And so we have recently met with Penns Valley Regional Planning. We have yet to circle back to those municipalities in the Penns Valley area. We will do so. We're meeting with the Penns Valley Community and Business Association, I think, next week. And so we're really just here for what we will need, and Josiah will explain a little bit more, is a letter of support from the municipalities and from as many businesses as we can, so that when we pursue the legislative route, that our lawmakers will know that there is support for the effort. And I know Josiah is going to talk a little bit about what it means to have that designation and some of the requirements.
Thank you for allowing us to be here to give this presentation. Again, my name is Josiah Jones. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. I wanted to start off with the mission statement for the Pennsylvania Byways Program. The mission of the Pennsylvania Byways Program is to support communities and local governments in achieving byway designations and to assist with local efforts to maintain byway resource qualities, to protect and preserve visual features and community character, to educate residents and visitors, to promote tourism and enhance economic development potential throughout the Commonwealth, and to avoid, minimize, and mitigate negative impacts along byway corridors. So if you change the slide. So some of the misconception or maybe some of the confusion that we have had since we started meeting with some of the different tourisms and or townships and boroughs was that to get a scenic byway designated, you have to have some different requirements. The major requirement is that the future billboards would be prohibited along that route. So State Route 45 has a lot of billboards already. I think we're over 30 billboards along this entire route. And so the existing billboards would be grandfathered in, therefore they're allowable. But this is just an example of what a billboard is. We had some confusion in thinking signage, all signage. It doesn't have to be all signage. It's just advertising billboards as you see here. And if you go to the next slide, here you see future businesses and existing business signs are allowable. So really the only thing that would be designated as prohibited are future installments or erections of billboards. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Okay, you can move on. So, going to go over some of the benefits and value of becoming a Pennsylvania byway. One is promotion. Once designated, a byway can be promoted and advertised through multiple channels to showcase historic features, recreational areas, cultural venues, and more along the route. The byway can be incorporated into local and regional tourism promotion efforts through coordination with destination marketing organizations, visitor and convention bureaus, and local chambers of commerce. Preservation. A community's scenic value is interwoven in its natural and cultural resources. A byway designation reinforces a community's commitment to preservation and helps to identify a range of options for resource protection. Partnerships. The designation process engages many byway stakeholders, including community leaders, private citizens, conservation organizations, and state agency representatives, which would include PennDOT and DCNR. Coordination early and often yields the most effective approaches to land use, economic development, and conservation activities. Pride. Formal byway designations can instill in area residents a greater awareness of and pride in the features of the region. The byway itself may become the connecting force between communities along a route that share a similar story. Funding opportunities. Designation as a national or state byway, coupled with a complete and publicly endorsed corridor management plan, which is going to be added to this application that Maureen Forbes and the National Travel Center is going to submit for us at the state. Demonstrates to grant sponsors that the requested funds will have strong public support and a means of successful implementation. Improved quality of life. Byway designation represents an opportunity to enhance overall quality of life in a community through investments in heritage and nature-based tourism-related infrastructure and enhancement-related projects and programs. Resource protection. Intrinsic resources valuable to the state can be identified and a management plan can be established to protect those resources. The management plan documents specific activities that will be pursued to protect the identified resources along the corridor in the future. And then lastly, economic impact. A designation can be marketed to spur tourism and associated economic development opportunities. Strategies such as locating visitor kiosks or scenic vistas spots along the corridor can be coupled with opportunities to market information about the corridor and to serve the tourists who visit the byway. So next slide. So just some safety considerations and messaging to consider. This information is from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and also the National Travel Center. Research again shows that billboards, particularly billboards near traffic signs, are distracting. Drivers distracted by billboards were 1.5 times more likely to miss road signs and had a 30% higher likelihood of drifting out of their lane. Large billboards near road signs could extend visual distraction to over 2.5 seconds, with accident risks increasing by 40% over those conditions. External distractions like billboards increase cognitive load and reaction times by up to 20%, thereby heightening the risk of crashes. The National Highway Safety Administration reports that 3,522 people died from distracting driving, and billboards were a significant source of distraction. They also found that billboards caused by prolonged eye fixations, diverting attention from the road for up to 3.5 seconds, increasing likelihood of accidents by 50%. And then the meta-analysis of recent literature suggests that external distraction from billboards affects at least 6 to 9% of distracted affected motor vehicle collisions, or approximately 49,000 motor vehicle accidents per year. So there's a way to also market shared road messaging, and that's something that Leslie's going to take over here and kind of just give you some information on how we're already doing that with some of our marketing.
Yeah, so there are a lot of travelers that do seek out the road less traveled. And so with the scenic byway designation for Route 45, that's something we're able to promote, and hopefully it brings more attention to the businesses along that route. But it also gives us a chance, and you can go to the next slide if you want, to incorporate some safety messaging. This is an example. We just created a Dairy Delight Trail brochure, which highlights our farm fresh ice cream and cheese throughout the county. And of course, those businesses are all located along our agricultural corridor.
That view shed, how do you control that? Because I mean, that's essentially what you're selling. You're selling the trip, hopefully to a destination. And if the trip becomes impeded with all these unwanted or undesirable uses, what good is it? That's my question. Oh, sure. Martin McGann.
Well, I'm not really sure I have a direct answer to that because we're talking about different issues. But hopefully, if the municipalities along the corridor are supportive of the designation, that within those municipalities, if some of these issues come into play, that can be addressed at that level. I mean, the scenic byway program just really focuses on the signage.
Is this different than agritourism?
Well, I think it supports agritourism because a lot of, our agricultural corridors in the county are, they're beautiful, they're very popular. We have some great businesses along the way, so, yes.
Yeah, I just have a couple comments here. We had, I don't know how familiar you are, but we spent a lot of time, money, effort for about 10 years to get our agricultural zones so we can restrict what can be done in there and preserve open space. So we've done that. But we heard a gentleman here earlier this evening that wants to put an intersection in and develop all that land down there in Potter Township. And Potter Township has, to my knowledge, does not have that same open space ordinance that we have. So I understand what you're saying, but how do we control, like, what if we're the oasis in the middle and everybody develops? Are you going to have some kind of limiting thing there, or just take what we get?
Well, I mean, the state byway program is pretty specific on what, what the requirements are. So it really just deals with signage. It's kind of, the rest is out of our hands, unfortunately, but I understand the point that you're making, but yeah, for the designation, it really just addresses the future billboards and signage. And this would be, the designation, you think of the Route 45 getaways, that event, I mean, having that scenic byway component added to that, if there's...
Just check it out.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a discussion item. I don't know if anybody wants to jump.
It's an FYI, basically.
Yeah.
If you're interested in having a letter of support, that's ultimately what they would want to know at some point in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to, I think the one thing that would be really nice is it supports our historic, it would support the Bow Mansion, it would support the efforts of the Boulsboro Village Conservancy with their walking tour Boulsburg. It would support the Heritage Museum and anything that they do, which would be nice.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, as far as a letter of support, I don't have a problem with it because, if anything, it'll help us. And I think we have, knock on wood, I'm fairly confident that we've ordinanced excess out of what's gonna happen in Harris Township. So I'm comfortable here, it's just, I don't know what's gonna happen around us, but I wouldn't have a problem with a letter of support, because I don't think there's anything there that's gonna hurt us.
What kind of support are you looking for in the letter? Simply saying we support it, or you want something specific with respect to what we anticipate happening, or? This could be a very complicated process, so. Writing letters like this is not pretty simple.
Yeah, no, so essentially, we'll go back to all the municipalities that we spoke with, we'll speak with more businesses, and then when we sit down, probably in the summer, once the state budget is finalized, and seek legislative sponsors. So I know it's our hope that we can get Senator Dush and then one of our House lawmakers. Those letters of support will be written to the lawmakers so that they can see that the municipalities and businesses support this effort. And that'll be key for them to make a decision to introduce legislation at the state level to get the designation. So the more support they see for it, that'll really help with that decision and move that along. So we can circle back at that time and just let you know what we need and when we need it. That's kind of our time frame, just, waiting till the state budget at least is adopted and going from there.
All right.
Okay?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let us know. Are we all the way up to this one? Yep. Okay, request for traffic signal on Bowl Avenue at Bear Meadows and Elks Club Road intersection.
So last month's meeting, the board had a brief discussion about sending a letter to PennDOT requesting that a traffic signal be installed on US 322 Bowl Avenue at the intersection of Bear Meadows Road and Elks Club Road. We invited the Township's traffic engineer, Rob Watts, with McCormick Taylor, here this evening to talk about the intersection, a little bit of some of the crash history, what type of studies would be needed to move something like this forward, and any other matters the board may want to consider if a request is made. So, Rob, if you'd like to step up to the microphone.
Good evening, Rob Watts with McCormick Taylor. Not quite sure where you want the discussion to go or how we should get started, being that you all had a discussion already and I was not there. So if you want to maybe bring me up to speed as to where you are, if there are residents here who maybe want to speak and relate their experiences with the intersection thus far, kind of where the pressure points are, I can give kind of more a broad overview and talk you through what it takes to get a traffic signal and maybe some ideas you might consider before you go full-blown traffic signal. But Frank, you had a question.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of the guy that started this. With the last month or two, we've had tremendous accidents down here. We had a fatality. And I asked PennDOT, I said, hey, it's going to be 10 years till we see this new road. And yeah, every time you ask them, that's what's going to take care of it. That's going to take care of it. Well, in the meantime, what can we do safety-wise? So one of the questions I asked is, why can't we put a red light there? Because you see cars trying to get, if you live in Bear Meadows and you try to get out, it isn't happening. So I said, why can't we put a red light there? We had one there when they did the road change there, and remember, it used to be offset, and now they put them together, and they had a red light there then, and then they took it away. So when I asked that question and bugged those guys, they said, oh, first thing you got to do is the township's got to write a letter. And I know we've probably written letters before on that corridor, but that was the first thing that they said. So my thing was, well, I don't know if we can get a red light there or not, but let's start the process. And that's where the letter, that's why you're here and we're talking about the letter. So we understand it's a long drawn out process, and yes, it's PennDOT, and PennDOT kind of does what PennDOT wants to do. So, but we wanted to at least start the process or discuss it, or how can we go about making that corridor safer today instead of waiting for 10 years for the new road.
Well, if you want to write a letter, I would say write a letter and ask for maybe not just for a traffic signal, but for some level, because the way PennDOT often works, and it's written into most of their publications, they work toward things incrementally. They'll say, let's try this. And then if that doesn't work, we try this. And that you've seen how that goes.
Well, that was one of the things they told me. They said that the reason that that's so hard to get out of there is the stop line on the Elks Club's side is too far back. And I couldn't figure that one out. I looked at them and just kind of, what do you mean it's too far back? it needs to be up closer.
Sure, let's repaint the line. You know, that's
I'm just
not
like, oh
difficult
my
to do.
goodness, you know, and so I don't know if do we need to do a traffic study? Is this gonna trigger, are we gonna have to have a traffic study there? Are we gonna have an accident analysis? You know, it's just a bad stretch of road.
It is a bad stretch of road, and it's been on PennDOT's radar for going on 30 plus years. My first job at McCormick Taylor, okay, that goes back a lot more longer than I would hope to say, but was to count traffic at that intersection and observe it back in the days of the South Central Center County study, which McCormick Taylor was working on at the time. And so it was a problem, and it has continued as development has happened back there. And it is constrained because it's the only way out. And I'm not saying anything you all don't know, but that makes it, in my view, and I see a lot of intersections in this region, probably one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging intersection that we have right now because of 322. 1 out of every 5 vehicles is a truck, a heavy truck, and there are a lot of them coming down through there. And then you have the exiting peak hour of traffic, which is making that left turn out of Bear Meadows. That's where I think 3 or 4 of the 11 crashes over the last 5 years have been. And I think those have been the most severe.
One of the things that they said to me, one of the many, but they said that, well, what would happen through there is if we put a red light there, then we would have rear end crashes for people coming off of the 4 lane and necking down. They said, well, it's supposed to be 45 mile an hour there, and they just, because they go fast, nobody goes 45 mile an hour through there, and I said, well, wouldn't the red light slow them down and put, red light coming, and they were supposed to put flashing lights here at the end of the 4 lane to say that it was ending. Well, we didn't get any of them either. So I mean, I'm just trying to see if that's not available, if we can't do a red light, is there anything else we can do there other than, I don't know, build a wall that nobody can close the road? I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably not going to be too popular with the folks on either side of that road. One idea, the intersection reminds me a little bit of Route 45 in Pine Grove Mills, where 26 comes down the hill and it hits the stop control intersection there. And they have a blinking light overhead there, not a traffic signal. I know Ferguson Township would like a traffic signal out there as well, but just haven't been able to warrant the traffic signal. There are these federal warrants for putting in a traffic signal, and if you don't meet them, PennDOT will not allow you to put a traffic signal in.
Should we do that before
But
we write a letter? Should we look and see if it warrants it?
you could certainly do that. There would be a traffic count involved, and it's a fairly straightforward evaluation once you have that. My gut tells me that you don't warrant it with the amount of vehicles coming off of Bear Meadows or Elks Club. You have to reach about 75 in an hour, and most of the counts I have seen are like 40, 50 in that range. Now, I haven't counted it recently or seen it counted recently. We could probably drag the counts out of the
You just need to
SCAC
count
study.
on the Wing night. When they have Wing Fest up there, that's when you count. You don't count during the day. You wait till Wing Fest goes on, then you count.
Well, we just tell everybody to come out when they're gonna count.
Is this an MPO issue, Rob?
I don't think so.
Involved in it, and Jim Snyder?
I don't think so, because traffic signals, as you know, are owned and maintained by municipalities, and it's basically between the municipality and PennDOT that permitting happens there. The route of the traffic signal, I think, is going to be very, very difficult to do. Development projects along Route 322 have talked about doing traffic signals out there. Rudders and Sheets tried to develop out there in Potter Township in that commercial area that the gentleman earlier was talking about. And I remember going to a traffic study scoping meeting up at PennDOT, and the first thing at the meeting, Tom Zarat, those of you who knew him, he was a district executive. He was the assistant district executive at the time, and Karen Michaels was the executive. Karen couldn't make it. Tom's very too much to the point. He came in there and he said, look, if you want a traffic signal here, you won't get it. It was a very short meeting after that. But that's sort of, as you know, PennDOT's stance on traffic signals in that corridor. They are concerned, and I agree with them. You would see an increase in rear-end crashes on 322 if you put a traffic signal in.
Does the cost fall on the township to install it and maintain it?
The cost could be done a couple of different ways. It would ultimately be your project unless PennDOT did it as part of a bigger project.
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, they're looking at SCAC,
Yeah.
8, 10, I'm not sure what schedule they gave you at the public meeting. 2035. There you go, 10 years. That's 10 years down, down the road. They're looking at that as the fix, and I don't think there's anything in any of their studies thus far that say a signal is warranted there.
I didn't get to the meeting last Thursday. Was that intersection discussed at all with respect to improvements or the bike path along the side to get up to Bear Meadows? Or what was the context of
I'm
that?
going to defer that to Mark because I
Mark?
couldn't go either.
I was there. It was basically, that's all going in, and they're gonna go back to staggering those roads because they're telling us that once the new road goes down through there, there'll only be 1,000 cars a day on that road. In comparison, there's probably 20 or 30 now, I'm guessing.
Around 20,000 today. The volume's going to plummet on that road, and there won't be the heavy trucks,
Right.
and that will make it a much easier situation for getting in and out of
The
there.
problem is getting from now till then.
Yes.
Of course, it's SCAC is gonna fix it, but what happens between, how many people are gonna, hopefully, knock on wood that they don't, but somebody could lose their life there in the next 10 years. Some, we could, property damage, you name it, and it's scary to look at.
Which is why I would encourage you to write the letter and put it on the record with them, because that kind of thing does get tracked, and keeps this issue. Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so to speak, and you can do it in as non-adversarial way as a partner would, and look at it as maybe something you can do progressively. If we need to move a stop bar, let's move a stop bar. If we need a different kind of warning device there, such as a blinker like out in Pine Grove Mills, maybe we can get something like that done in the short term. Let's do a what if. Let's say you would put a full traffic signal in there. The cost is going to probably fall all in the township. If you do go for a grant, there's a process for that. I'm not sure how far in the future it would be till you get the grant, do the design, get the signal in. What's that, 3 years at least? So there's 3 of our 10 years. You put the signal in, they do SCAC, you now have a traffic signal that you own, okay, that is really no longer needed. And what you would need to do to remove that signal is do another study. And these are federal regulations here. This isn't even PennDOT saying this. This is a federal regulation to remove that, because odds are that signal it's a weight on you. It's a maintenance issue.
Well,
so now you're paying to put it in, only to pay to take it out.
I understand. But the one thing that, one of the MPO subcommittees I'm on is the safety committee. And we are looking at, and the 4 most dangerous stretches of highway in Center County, 3 of them are by Coons Farm, the turn there, Tate's Farm, and that intersection.
Yep.
In Center County. That's 3 of the 4. And just to ignore it till the new road comes in, I think is a mistake. So I have no problem with us writing a letter. Who we write it to, PennDOT?
I would say write it to the district traffic engineer, Eric Brown.
And the letter asked for what? Traffic count numbers, crash data, what are they going to give us that is going to expedite this?
You could, it reminds me a little bit of the end of the bypass when you were looking at that situation. We didn't know exactly what we wanted to do there. We had some ideas. We had some bigger ideas, and we had some smaller ideas. They did a lot of the smaller stuff and probably didn't do any of the big stuff. But I would say ask for a more detailed review of the safety situation and data collection to study the applicability or the warrants for a traffic signal. They may not want to do the warrant study, or if they would provide their traffic counts from the SCAC project, we could just run the traffic warrant study here. It's a matter of plugging those volumes into a spreadsheet that PennDOT has, because they want to be in control of how that gets calculated. So it's a pretty good tool.
The cost for doing the crosswalk by the military is $375,000?
Yep.
Triple that, or 4 times, or 6 times that.
Most traffic signals in that type of a footprint would probably be 300,000 to 400,000. You are getting into, if you would put one in there, and I'm designing it, I'm putting warning devices out that give red signal ahead and are active and would, come up when the signal starts to turn red. They would actually say red signal ahead. They have one in Ebensburg if you drive 22 out that direction, but it's a fairly sophisticated way of giving adequate warning to those big vehicles that they're approaching a traffic signal. The other thing, if you add a traffic signal, they'll probably time it to have a very long cycle length, which means it might be 2, 3, 4 minutes till the side street gets a green, just because of the traffic that's on there. There's one thing you might want to be ready for them to do. I remember we traveled to the beach in Rehoboth Beach, been doing it for 50 years, and there was a town, Odessa, that used, before they built the big highway to go down there, you'd have to go through Odessa, and they had traffic signals that would operate. You only get the side street green every 5 minutes, because there was such heavy volume on the main line and such small volume on the sides. They just have to do that to be able to move the traffic effectively. And that's sort of the situation that you have. Not quite that situation. I don't want to make that into a scare tactic at all. But I think if it's a delay issue, like people are sitting there for a long time, and they do in the afternoon, it's a very, very long time. Many probably give up, they turn right, and they try to turn around, maybe at the Tate Farm, maybe at, wherever it is. But those are some of the realities of the signal design.
Yeah, just one other thing. I did, when I was talking with them, they were throwing some other ideas at me.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things they said it could be in addition to, or maybe in lieu of, was putting like some kind of flashing light, like the speed limit signs would have flashing, or dangerous intersection with some actual blinking lights,
Mm-hmm.
that were coming up. That something like that could be added through that whole corridor.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe paint the speed limit in the road, because for whatever reason, people see that painted on the road and they slow down. So that may be the alternative, that we say, hey, we want a red light, but if we can't, we'd defer to something like that. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
From your expertise, what would your thoughts be on that?
I know whenever I work with PennDOT, you kind of want to cast a wide net. Give them the opportunity to give you ideas as well, because there are constantly new things that are coming out there. The speed feedback signs, that you're you're 45 miles an hour going down through there, and you get a happy face. You go 55 and you get the sad frowny face, kind of thing. Yeah. Bruce is like that. So you can put those out there, and they do provide feedback, and those have been shown to be somewhat effective. And there are other treatments for areas as you're approaching. Pennsylvania is like this all over the place. You're in a 55 zone, and you come into a zone that has a lower speed. How do you get vehicles down in speed as they approach? There are other treatments that you can use, some more expensive, some less expensive. Some of them wouldn't be applicable, like the speed. The speed markings they put out there, they kind of speed run. They're not rumble strips, but they're like rumble lines. You'll hit them as you go past really quick. Because you have residences sitting up there on the hill, that would probably be a noise that they're not going to want to have.
Other than those loud as the Jake brakes.
Well, yeah, there's not always so much you can do about that in the middle of the night, right? It's a for enforcement deal, just like your speeds on the 45 section.
Well, they did tell us that the Jake brake noise would go down with the new road.
They wouldn't have to slow down. That's the whole idea, is they can just keep at speed without.
Till they get to the turn down there.
Well, yeah, and then they get down there and they got to slow down. Hopefully they slow down because we don't want them turning over down there. Too many of those. Near College Avenue.
Stoplight being put in there, and then suddenly being inundated with Jake brakes.
Well, the vehicles will be louder when
they
they slow
sure
down
will.
and then when
Yeah.
they start back up again.
But both directions.
Yeah, you'd have it, you'd likely, yeah, because you just stop them in both directions to
Yeah,
let them
yeah.
out safely. Yeah. Yeah, so the trade-offs, and I hate to make, because locally, there's no options, and what do you do? PennDOT is going to take the long game perspective. We're solving this with SCAC, and the practicalities are, it's just going to be hard to do. It's going to be expensive to do. Again, you're paying to put it in, and then you're paying to take it out. Unless you maintain it, which you probably don't want to do. You want probably as few traffic signals as you can get, because
We
they're.
can sell to somebody, take it out.
There we go. eBay, buddy.
Well, I think we do need to write a letter to PennDOT, and we can reference the lights and all these things, but I think the brunt of the letter should say that we want you to do something and make that corridor safer. You know, we need some whatever it is, we need road markings, and we can give them some examples, but I think we do need to be on record that we want that thing slowed down or whatever has to happen in there.
And use your justification, like you said, from the MPO committee. You've looked at this situation. You know it's an issue. PennDOT knows it's an issue already. So doing something short-term, quote, low cost, to try to address it and incrementally get there is an appropriate thing to ask, I think.
I'll help you. You want a Frank letter? Frank's good at letters. I always start World War III.
You better review it, Mark.
All right. Any more questions? All right. Well, thanks, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Info. Next is the Aikens Replot Minor Subdivision Plan.
In August of 2024, staff received from Pentair Engineering a minor subdivision plan that proposes to subtract .0925 acres of land from a 152-acre lot owned by Randolph Aikens and add it to a 9.170-acre neighboring lot also owned by Aikens to create a lot of 10.095 acres. This smaller lot is developed as the Aikens Cabins currently. Both lots are served by on-site water and sewer services. 3 reviews of the plan have been completed, the third of which was included with the agenda, as well as a plan sheet showing the proposed changes. The number of comments has been reduced to a number acceptable for inclusion on the agenda. 2 waiver requests have been submitted for the plan. First, Chapter 11, Article 3, Section 1 requires plans to be drawn at a scale of 1 inch equals 50 feet or larger. The request is to allow the plan scale to be 1 inch equals 150 feet due to the large size of the lots involved. Second, Chapter 11, Article 4, Section 14 contains the requirements for the establishment of riparian buffers. For the larger lot, the applicant requests a waiver of 11-4.14 D4, which requires the placement of riparian buffer markers every 50 feet on the riparian buffer borders. This property contains a great number of streams and wetlands, making strict compliance with the riparian buffer marker regulations both difficult and expensive. For the smaller lot, the applicant requests that 11-4.14.D1 and 11.4.14.D4 be waived, altered to allow 1 fewer riparian buffer marker to be placed on the west side of the existing wetland due to the development on the property. West of the riparian buffer is a driveway, 5 cabins, and parking areas, as well as relief from the 50-foot separation between the markers in the area adjacent to the cabins. The waiver requests for the riparian buffer standards have been worked through by the applicant, the township engineer, and me, and what is proposed is endorsed by staff. Recommendations are, number 1, move to approve the waiver request of 11-3.1 plan scale. 2, move to approve the waiver request of 11-4-14 D4 for lot 25-04-55R and 11-4.14.D1 and 11-4.14.D4. for lot number 25-04-55X as per the recommendations of Township staff. And 3, move to approve the Aikens replot minor subdivision plan contingent upon satisfactory completion of the comments from the April 24, 2025 memo of the Center Regional Planning Agency, the May 5, 2025 letter of the Township Engineer, and the May 7, 2025 letter of the Zoning Officer.
All right. My question is why .925 rather than a full acre? Is there a reason why we're doing something so small?
There is, and I'm gonna get my laser pointer out of my pocket.
Okay.
If you look on the plan there, that's the larger lot, that's the smaller
Yeah.
lot. The yellow area is what's being proposed to be taken from this lot and moved to this lot. Since this property is a little bit less than 10 acres in size, we've been told that Mr. Akins has an interest in converting the use of that property to a campground, which we permitted as a new primary use in the rural rewrite.
So the cabins aren't a campground?
They aren't currently a campground, no, but Mr. Akins has a interest in possibly pursuing that. And you have to have 10 acres minimum lot size.
What changes when it's a campground versus what it is for the cabins?
Well, I think any number of things changes. I think they could do tents out there. They could do some other things that they can't currently do to do the campground.
So it revolves around a 10-acre parcel?
Yes, the minimum lot size for
Not
campground.
minus .25, a 10-acre parcel?
Right.
That's the secondary reason then, okay. Does that affect your comment with respect to that issue? The 10-acre issue? Does that affect your comments on what you just read?
That's all, that was all part of it. We knew going into the reviews that was probably the purpose for the subdivision plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I guess, the only thing I asked earlier, and the answer was given to me, because of that new area there, that's in that new zone, 10 acres allows them to put a store in there. But I think before, understanding that store cannot be advertised, it's not a Sheetz, it can only be there to support the campground. The only thing they can have in that store is things that people, so I don't want us going 10 acres and then we have to go up there and fight every day because, we have a gas station and all kinds of stuff in there, Unimart, whatever you want to call it. So I want to make sure that if we do this, that is understood by the owner before we get into a, whatever contest about it. So that's something to keep in mind up there, and I don't know.
Being so convenient to go.
Well, if it's for the
system, we could end up with a bunch of larger sales kind of opportunity.
But that's why we did it, so that people in a campground wouldn't have to run 20 miles to get a quart of milk, So, but I want to make sure it's understood. It's not an enterprise type of a thing as far as promoting it outside, advertising, that type of thing. I believe we don't have signage on that, right?
That's correct, yeah, there's a specific definition in the ordinance for a camp store, and Todd can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe for them to move forward and actually establishing a campground, there'd be another process they'd have to go through. So this is just to create the lot. If they want to go through that campground process, they'd have to acknowledge and adhere to all of these requirements and limitations.
What prohibits then selling to non-campers? It's suddenly being a commercial venture versus an inside venture.
There is nothing in the ordinance that specifically prohibits who they can sell the items to. The way that the ordinance was written and the way the camp store is defined is they are to sell products that are germane to the people that are staying on the campground. And, the limits on advertising and the other limits that are within the ordinance kind of preclude the thing from being a general store for the public.
I think what we were looking at, like if a hiker was going by there and wanted to stop in and grab a drink or whatever, that's not a problem. That's not what we were worried about. What we were worried about is if we said, okay, you can have a store there, and somebody throws a Unimart type store up or whatever you want to call it, Sheetz or whatever. We didn't want that in our nature areas. So it was more of a support store for the campground, I think is what we looked at. And that's what we're looking at. We aren't restricting who can go there, but.
And the people that use Galbraith Gap, the parking lot for
Yeah, if they
Galbraith
want to
Gap.
walk over, yeah, if they want to walk over and grab
It's used
it.
pretty heavily.
Yep, yep.
There
Yeah,
are
that-
setback requirements, there are requirements for how the camp store can be accessed via roads. It can't be a direct connection from the adjacent public street. You have to have it through the
Bear Mountain
internal,
Road?
right, it has to be through the interior of the campground road network. There's a limitation on size, can't be larger than 1,000 square feet, limitation on signage. So there's a lot of limitations that were put in place. It doesn't mean someone that's aware of it couldn't go in and grab something, but the intention was that it would remain accessory and incidental to a campground.
And I would also add that since it is a camp store and it is defined the way it is, if the campground use goes away, the store goes away.
Right.
It's not like the store can continue to operate if the campground is no longer there.
Could we, as an alternative, ask him to explain what a riparian buffer is? In lieu of replacing one of the markers, simply ask him to tell people what a riparian buffer is. Could be done with a small sign, could probably work with Clearwater to spell that out, to make it a mutually beneficial kind of thing.
Well, I guess we could do that, but we suggest that the alternative we put in the agenda is the most appropriate one.
Alternative, okay. Well, I'm just trying to make this an educational process
Right.
for all the people that use his cabins, because I suspect most people don't know what a riparian buffer is.
Oh, there are going to be several signs there on the cabin side as well as on the other side of the driveway. It's just going to be one fewer.
Yeah.
Do we still need a motion on that? Or did we?
I read the proposal.
I know you did, but do we need somebody to make, yeah, I'll make the motion to cover all that. I'll make all those motions.
No, can we do that? One motion to cover everything?
Sure, why not?
Move to approve the waiver request, move to approve that waiver.
If you want to move everything that Todd read,
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine, unless you want to make a change to something, whether you have to do them individually.
All right. So Frank, you're going to make the motion as read,
Yep,
including the waiver request?
yep.
All right. Oh, I hear a second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Bruce chime in? Aye. There you go.
Opposed, yes. One opposition.
One opposition, okay. Supervisor Hamlish. Okay. Moving right along then, Hawk Ridge, Lot 1 minor subdivision.
In 2022, staff received a minor subdivision plan for Lot 1 of the Hawk Ridge subdivision plan, the house lot of the former owners of the property. The two reviews of the plan were completed in late 2022 and early 2023 before there was a pause in the process. On March 25 and April 24th of this year, staff received three more revisions of the plan that proposes 3 lots from the 1.535 acre tract, 2 new building lots, and a lot on which an existing house is currently located. And between the second plan review in 2023 and the third plan review in 2025, the property changed hands as Martin and Lee McGann bought the property, building their house on the southeast corner of the lot. The proposed lot that would contain their house is 16,408 square feet in area. The proposed lot with a flag portion accessing South Academy Street is 17,764 square feet in area. And the third proposed lot located on the corner of South Academy Street and Emma Court is 32,704 square feet in area and contains a 20-foot stormwater easement around an existing stream. All lots are to be served by public water and sewer. The fifth review of the plan and plan copies were included with the agenda. Some comments remain outstanding, including a waiver request of Chapter 11-4.13D4, which requires riparian buffer markers at certain intervals for all properties subject to the establishment of a riparian buffer. You may remember that from the last agenda item. The waiver request also included with the agenda asks that no riparian buffer markers be required on proposed Lot 1R. that would contain the existing McGann House. Riparian buffer markers, if placed as per ordinance requirements, would be required in the building setback on the west side of the proposed lot and in front of the porch on the south side of the proposed lot. The proposed solution, which staff supports, is to show the riparian buffer on proposed lot 1R on the plan, but place riparian buffer markers at the west property line on both sides of the riparian buffer. This will require the addition of one sign at the south west corner of the property line, and I will point out on that's the one we're asking be added. These are proposed. These are proposed with one at the property line. We're asking at the property line that one. That's not riparian buffer.
Which one of those is on the front porch?
None of them are. The agenda item said if they were where they were supposed to be, there would be one required over here and one over here. Additionally, the township has worked with the developer to address the requirement that $27,000 for fee in lieu of park land be paid prior to plan approval. The developer agreed in an email last week to pay the $27,000 pending conditional approval of this subdivision plan. This requirement is a carryover from the original plan approval from 2009. It is believed that all other comments can be addressed in a timely fashion. Staff's recommendations are: 1, move to approve the waiver request of Chapter 11-4-13-D4 regarding the placement of riparian buffer markers on proposed Lot 1R. 2, move to approve the Hawk Ridge Lot 1 minor subdivision plan contingent upon satisfactory completion of all outstanding comments from the May 5, 2025 memo of the Center Regional Planning Agency, the May 6, 2025 letter of the Township Engineer, and the May 7, 2025 letter of the Zoning Officer.
For discussion purposes, I'll move the motion.
Okay, discussion. Did you have something, Dennis?
I just wanted to, put it on the table so we can talk about it.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments?
The other two lots that you talked about, can you point all those lots out?
This is the
Okay,
proposed lot that contains
that's where the current house
McGann's
is.
existing house.
Okay.
This is the lot that has the stormwater easement
Okay,
through it.
okay.
And this would be the third lot.
Oh, okay. This other one to the right is not involved in that?
No, that's an existing
Okay,
house.
okay.
Yeah.
What
Go ahead,
is
Paul.
the width of the riparian buffer? What is the width of the riparian buffer?
Riparian buffers are required to extend 50 feet on either side of the stream.
Yes.
Paul, could you also just identify yourself for the record, please?
Paul Wiener, live on 305 South Academy.
Well, after all the discussion we've had on it, looks like it's a reasonable solution.
Yes.
Without dragging it on past, with a deadline in the May meeting. If we don't meet that, we're going to, it goes on and on, so.
All right. Any more discussion? Okay, well, call the question then. So, the motion was,
My motion was,
and who seconded that? So, again, the whole package, including the waivers. So all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now, Chapter 12, Technical Review and Correction.
Staff recently completed an ongoing project that began following codification of the Township Code of Ordinances several years ago. Through the years, minor technical issues and grammatical punctuation inconsistencies have been compiled by staff with the intent to correct those identified with a comprehensive repeal and readoption of Chapter 12, which is the zoning ordinance. Additionally, staff has identified several areas where the Planning Commission may want to consider further discussion separate from this process to strengthen Chapter 12. The Planning Commission discussed this item at their April meeting and concurred that the minor technical revisions should be implemented and recommended and that they be forwarded to the board for consideration. The PC also identified a few issues that require more discussion and agreed that such should be added to future PC agendas, perhaps as part of the 2026 work plan. Included with the agenda are copies of pages from Chapter 12 where minor changes are recommended. Those changes were highlighted in red text, strike-through, word replacement, and punctuation changes and the like. Staff's recommendation for this item is it's a discussion item. If the board is satisfied that this draft addresses the minor technical issues identified by staff, the draft can be written in adoptable ordinance form, and a public hearing could be held at a future meeting.
Okay. Am I understanding that we're taking care, anything in red is what you're calling administrative type?
Yeah, anything that you see that
Explain
has
the
a strikeout,
Okay, the strikeout's what I have questions on. Does that mean we're eliminating that from that ordinance?
we're either eliminating it or replacing it with different wording.
Okay, like for example, I see the one on home occupation.
That entire section was
Okay, we got rid of that.
changed to the low impact and no impact
Okay.
regulations.
So everything in this one that we see right now is, we've either already done another ordinance or we've done something to fix it.
Well, the home occupations and the sign regulations are an exception. Those things were replaced by other ordinances.
Okay,
So
that's
they're
what I
just being taken out of this. They haven't showed up in written versions of this. I think they've been changed in the codification that's online.
And then anything that's major in here, they're gonna go over. The planning commission's gonna bring to their agenda, right?
Yeah, there is nothing really major in that. This is similar to what we did with Chapter 11 last month.
Okay.
And those two strikeouts are basically the only issue to be concerned about.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there are a lot of small, tiny little amendments
Most of them are
that we're
little
proposing.
So most of these are in different sections at this point?
Yeah, they're spread throughout the.
Yeah, I looked through it, I saw, the red, there's nothing major I saw in it.
Right.
So I don't,
I was
so I'd say go ahead and write her up.
Wait a minute, I was looking at something, I can't find it now.
Let's do that.
It's really great reading, too.
No, it really,
Oh, it was so much fun.
it was a lot of fun to compile.
Yes, I do, I can't find what I'm looking for though. It's something I had a question about. Maybe the question was already answered. No, I think you answered the question. Good.
What's that?
I thought I had a question, but I think it was answered.
So all you need is concurrence on this, right?
What's that?
All you need is concurrence on this?
Yeah.
Okay, I concur.
The stuff back on page... The certificate of nonconformity, can you explain that a little bit? Because it's a major strikeout.
Yeah, I think the section you're referencing, there's a separate section for certificates of nonconformity for nonconformities in general. And then following that, there's another section in the existing ordinance that reiterates some of that.
Okay.
And our take on that is, we don't know why that is where it is. Just, there are a couple other sections that are like that. They've been inserted where they don't belong, and we wonder if that's just a mistake through the codification process.
Striking that doesn't open conditional use for anything.
No, it doesn't change anything, because the nonconformity section contains the same language, and we're not suggesting that that
Okay.
be struck out. Stricken out. Whatever out.
Find anything yet?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that it was in other areas.
All right. Well, we have consensus to get that written up properly and brought back to us. Very good.
Bruce, does he have a comment on that?
No. And then she proposed it. With that.
Some background on Bruce's end.
Yeah, we have some background from somewhere.
I have nothing.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the Code Board of Appeals appointment.
So at the April 28th meeting, the general forum unanimously forwarded the individuals listed below for reappointment or appointment to the Center Region Building and Housing Code Board of Appeals. That's Ryan Solnoski and Albert Drobka. And the recommendation is to appoint the individuals listed above to the Center Region Building and Housing Code Board of Appeals. They would both be for 3-year terms.
What's the total membership of that? 5?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I can look real quick and find out.
Not important. Okay.
All right. Do I hear a motion? That should be an easy one.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, Dennis.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, future land use map.
So also at the April 28th meeting, the general forum received a presentation from the CRPA Director, Mike Tilka, on updating the future land use map for the next iteration of the Center Region Comprehensive Plan. That future land use map helps to identify future land use patterns in the township and guides future zoning decisions on behalf of the township as well. Mr. Tilka had proposed a 3-phase process to update the map over the next several months. So they are looking for feedback from all of the governing bodies in the region on how elected officials in each municipality would like to be involved with forming the future land use map. There are a couple options listed in the agenda. It includes joint meetings with the Planning Commission, perhaps having separate meetings between the Planning Commission and then the board, relying on the Lucy Committee representative, or perhaps some other process that the board would be interested in. The recommendation is that you discuss how you'd like to be involved. I will follow up with CRPA and let them know. I'm not sure on a timeline with some of the staffing changes they're having over there, but nonetheless, once we forwarded our preference to them, I will work in ensuring that process is
It's more
followed.
beneficial that we meet with the planning commission because we depend a lot on their input on things. A joint meeting to me would be the better way to go, rather than them having to meet with both of us.
I agree.
My question is, if we have that joint meeting, do we still rely then on Denny to take it to the Lucy Committee, or is that something that joint committee would send?
I think what it would come down to, and Denny, you can correct me if I'm wrong, how it's been discussed at Lucy, you would be coming up with what you would want to see that future land use map look like, and that would go to the planning agency for them to incorporate into the comprehensive plan. Certainly Lucy and CRPC would review that, but you're in the driver's seat as the governing body on how you want to see the future land use map look.
Because we've talked about things, some of which should involve the planning commissions. So let's put them together and do one meeting and get over.
What I was looking at, are you talking about a joint meeting with all the planning commissions, or just us and the
Just,
planning?
just Harris
And then
Townships.
what I'm envisioning then, from what I'm hearing from Denny, is we have that meeting and we have our discussion and come up with what we want. Then when Lucy looks at it, Denny would be our voice of expressing what that joint meeting, what the intent of that joint meeting was, correct?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I'm happy with that.
That's basically pro forma for us, so. But again, we don't know what the staffing situation is gonna be like.
Right, that's why I said I'm not sure when it will actually be a work item for you to have that joint meeting with the planning commission. And it might take more than one meeting, quite honestly, to identify if you want to make changes to our future growth patterns.
Well, we're scheduled for a meeting in June, so.
Sure.
And I'm this keeps flowing, and I'm like, this is just like it is not.
Who is that?
It's Bruce. He muted himself, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Putting in the back.
Not a problem.
Okay. Well, that's consensus, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, next, request to close East Main Street for a wine walk.
So, as noted in here, Tracy Moriarty is requesting the closure of East Main Street from the Diamond to Academy Street.
Alternative.
I can pull some information together maybe for your June meeting or July meeting that kind of lays out what's available and which one from, perhaps my standpoint, as well as the standpoint of some of the statewide organizations we participate in, which one would be best to serve us.
Because we are sort of the donut county for not having Lewistown, Lock Haven, Huntington, Clearfield have newspapers.
Right.
And how far they infringe in the center county in that definition of print?
Well, it's, newspaper of general circulation is not well defined by the state, so it makes it problematic to know where we are legally allowed to use.
Belfont's included in the Lock Haven
Correct.
coverage area.
Right.
And we aren't, so.
Exactly. So, some other matters on my manager's report here that I will bring to your attention. I did include some information on short-term rentals. It's not a discussion item for this evening. Just some data on where they are at in the township. Nigel did point out, and I will follow up with the regional planning agency on the map that was produced. I think some of the colored dots are incorrect in terms of whether they are owner occupied or not. I looked at the raw data and it's right, but I don't know what happened with the mapping. So I'll get you updated maps in the future. But nonetheless, the statistics are correct with what's in there as far as the number that are owner occupied and which ones are not. I'll also bring to your attention number 3. There was a zoning hearing board meeting the other day where there was a variance request, and the zoning hearing board did approve that on a vote of 2 to 1. At this point, even though staff does believe that there may have been, there may be grounds for appealing it, we're not recommending that that be done at this time.
What does that do to the lighting there?
Well, they can't have any like backlit awnings, so it would have to all be directional downlighting in that case. So there will be more lighting, but they'll have to meet our lighting ordinance for that canopy. So, and that was all I had, unless anybody has any questions on anything else on here.
One comment I had, number 4. I was just a little disappointed. I thought we would be getting that thing this summer.
Yeah, it's taken a while to get a contract from our consultant on this. I just got it here in the last week or two, and I forwarded that on to our solicitors just to make sure there's no issues with it, and they do have a few comments. So I'm hoping to have it at least addressed here in the next couple of weeks. But in speaking with Mr. Watts, he said that, 2026 is what was reasonable. I think whether or not we had started on it immediately last fall, it would have still been a 2026 construction time frame. Okay. I will point out that that last sentence in there I am a little concerned about in speaking with Rob. There's a potential we may need some easement from the Bull Mansion side.
Does that mean we have to go to jail to get it?
I don't understand why.
Who's we?
Township.
Yes, I would. That would be my concern. Is I'm not sure who can sign on behalf of that property owner. If it's just something that Mr. Watts wasn't aware of when the grant was applied for.
Okay.
And there's also some uncertainty because when Bowl City established over there, they did have a plan that showed the right of way very far back from the road. So it might require some surveying to be done, find out where the actual property line is, and we may be okay. But if it turns out that it's where McCormick Taylor believes it's at, we may need to look at how we're going to get an easement to accommodate a landing area on that side of the.
What is the right of way of that?
I believe Rob thought it was 60 feet, and he thought
From center?
no. I believe in. I'm probably wrong about 60 feet. I'm not 100% sure. He thought it was up to the curb on that south side of Bull Avenue, right there. So
That makes a big difference.
it does, but some of the maps that were given during the Bull City land development plan process showed it back probably 20, 25 feet from the curb. So there's a question on where that PennDOT right-of-way line actually falls, and I think that's where getting a survey done through the grant process will be useful.
Was that crosswalk expected to be on the left side or the right side of Bull Avenue?
Well, it'd be on the east side.
Was this side?
Yes, it'd be, yeah.
Okay, I'll come.
Yeah, depending on which side of the intersection you're on.
On the brewery side?
Yeah, it would be on the brewery side,
Okay.
correct, yes.
I'm not scared. I mean, I'm scared to cross at the light. With the dogs, I have to wait till everybody stops before I will put my foot in that street. I mean, like having the crosswalk, I just think that it scares me a lot.
Right.
People just don't pay attention.
That's where that advanced warning, the flashing signing, hopefully
But you know
will
what,
make
though?
it
I mean,
safer.
I'm walking. I was driving through State College, and somebody just walked right across the street without pushing that button, and that person was wearing clothes that were similar to the road. And I mean, really, can give us help us a little bit, I'm glad to stop it. That's what scares me most, especially when you're going across and you might have the one stopped and then the other one. Like,
This won't make it perfectly safe, but it will improve safety. There'll still be a common sense factor in there and people
yeah, but you
exercising
don't
caution.
have common sense, you know.
I know.
Nor do the drivers of the cars.
Sure.
This doesn't have a push button system on it, does it?
It could. It may be push button, it may be automatic detection. It's going to come down to how it ultimately gets designed and what'll work best out there. But there will also be lighting that will be added to that intersection too. So at nighttime, hopefully it'll help, illuminate anyone crossing should they not be wearing reflective clothing or something brighter that doesn't have them blend in.
It's just gotta be the light that's
I think
flashing.
we're asking for trouble.
You need to slow down, that's all.
But too late now, we got the money.
And folks cross there already. So.
Yeah. Okay. Next, excuse me. Next, approval of vouchers.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve voucher number 2025-4 in the amount of $138,226.01.
Second.
Any discussion there? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, on to COG committee reports. So I will ask Bruce for reports on executive and the other ones he handles.
Yeah, well, the executive committee, as you know, prepares the agenda for the next meeting. I'll say in terms of the Parks and Recreation, we're moving forward, just as a group, we're moving forward with the plans for Hess Fields and the Whitehall Road Regional Park. Hess Fields in particular, there's going to be we're going to rent one of these portable bathroom facilities on a trailer this summer. I'll alert you all to when that happens so you'll be able to go out and see it and view what it looks like and what kind of facility it adds. I hope that we don't go with that as a permanent solution, but as something temporary until we can do the correct thing and put in a full bathroom facility. And before we do that, we have to get the sewer down there. That's all.
All right, thanks, Bruce. Okay, Human Resources Committee, we met May 7th. Few items on the agenda, and one I wanted some feedback on. The discussion was HR metrics and the possibility of tracking employees' time on different things they do during the day, like maybe totaling how many phone calls they made or totaling how many emails they had to deal with or whatever. And some things are already tracked, attendance and of course and a few other things, but this was a suggestion about something that HR could possibly do, and the committee was pretty much in agreement that we didn't want to over-track people, but at the same time, some of this could be useful. So I kind of wanted to bounce that off y'all. My personal feeling was we have professional employees; they manage their time well. If there's no red flags, why would you need to go to that level and track people? Also, the committee didn't want staff to actually end up having to spend extra time to actually do all these things. So anyway.
Creates a feeling of distrust when you have someone monitoring that kind of.
I don't like, I can say I don't like that. I think that it's important to know your people who are working with you. I think it's important to know their contribution to what you're doing, and tracking every minute of somebody's day is not going to build good relations.
The only reason I would see that you would do it is if you wanted to track costs. In other words, if you wanted to see how much time employees spent on Park and Rec or code or whatever, so that you could budget it a little more accurately. That's the only reason I could see it happening.
But don't you think there should be a general understanding? If if you're, what you're doing, and you could come up with very good estimates of that anyway.
Well, if you look at attorneys, they do it all the time. They punch a number. If they're on the phone, they punch an account number in, and it's automatically logged into how much time they spent with that client on the phone.
But that's
It can be done.
self-regulation.
Well, I'm just saying, that's
But
the only
that's
reason
not
I
a
can
bad
see it.
idea, but
That's
that's
the only
more
reason I can see it.
self-regulation. But having somebody kind of like poking at you, self-regulation is one thing. I'm working on this right now, I'm working on that right now. But that's completely, I wouldn't mind something like that.
I think this is a responsibility for supervisors to keep track of. And I'd rather see our people doing their jobs rather than documenting how they're doing their job.
All right.
They got enough to do.
All right, okay.
Should be ready
Appreciate
for yearly end discussion about work performance. Now that's
Yeah. All right, great. Well, now I know what to bring back. Anyway, we had a couple of other items, payroll budget proposal for programs to handle time and attendance more efficiently, higher module and onboarding module. This would be requests for budget for the next year. And of course, we had a number of requests for personnel, changes, additions, reclassifications, things like that. But all that'll come out through the budgeting process eventually. All right, climate action and sustainability met at midday today, and the one item that came up was due to the power outage we had recently. There was refrigeration and freezers in the region. Obviously, people ended up having to throw away a lot of food, and I'm not sure how it came about, but the COG Ben has some money available from his executive budget to do certain things he felt was a good idea. And what his idea was to directly reimburse Bergmeyer Hauling for anybody that put additional bags out that would normally be charged, and so the COG would cover that. Turns out, this was from April 30th to May 7th, turned out it could have been a pretty big expense, but highly unlikely, but it was $696 to get that all covered.
That's at the $4 per bag cost?
Yes, that's
Okay.
$4 per bag. So, and now we didn't get a discount on it because of that. Well, let's see. And we had some budget updates from the CRPA, Center Region Planning Commission, for requests for positions or change things. One was to incorporate an AmeriCorps position into the budget on a permanent basis, slightly increase the budget to allow for a graduate level intern, and also in planning, remove the unfilled, unfunded senior land use planner position, which committee pretty much agreed on because of the less demand for services for municipalities for planning. The one position doesn't need to be funded. There are two others that are currently unfilled and unfunded, but they're not taking them out at this time. And that was it. So thanks for your attention there. So Dennis,
Neither one met.
okay, that's easy. Frank, finance to
Sure.
start with?
Finance, we met on May 10th, and mostly we did have a little discussion and comments on the federal, the state, and local economic impacts on COG on the new administration. One thing that was brought, which you just mentioned, we will lose the federal funding for the AmeriCorps position that we have right now. Now, it is funded through the end of the year, but it's not as major as it sounds. I think we get like $6,000 or $7,000 from the Fed, so we could incorporate that in the budget if we do want to keep the AmeriCorps. So that's one thing that came up. We talked about the proposed budget timeline, which did you get a copy of that, Mark? The budget timeline yet?
I don't believe I have.
I'll try to forward you. I think I have that. I'll forward that to you. Because it's so we've got it, all the dates and everything, so it can be incorporated into our agendas going forward, so we know when we're gonna do that. And then most of the rest of the meeting, we talked about, our fund balance policy, which we're working on. We're going through every agency right now and putting fund balances and how much we're gonna do and how we're gonna police it, that type of thing. The biggest thing we're looking at right now is how to figure that when we have excess fund balance, what do we do? How do we control excess fund balance? Because, there are situations where, you might have an excess fund balance, but you got a major, like fire, for example. You might have an excess fund balance, but you got a big truck coming in 6 months, it's gonna wipe it out. So we wanna try to figure out a good way of tracking that and do it. And this new software we have will probably be a lot of help for that. But that's everything we talked about there. Like I said, a lot of our time right now trying to get this fund balance policy put to bed. Next on me is the connector. Okay, who did not get to go to the meeting? Okay, pretty much what we got was PennDOT's preferred route. And if you looked at it, I remember many years ago, we wrote a letter, said we didn't want it coming through Harris Township. We kind of lost that fight. We said take it up over the mountain, we lost that fight. So we lost a lot of fights on it, but from what I saw, if it's got to come here, I think it's pretty efficient where they came through. They didn't take a lot of the properties. Most of it, if you look at it, kind of comes up through the middle. The thing that I don't know what the heck you want to call it, 15 bridges. They're building 15 bridges up through there. That's a lot of bridges. Now
On the new route?
On the new route. Now, what they did was, and this is one of the things, it's got some good side to it. When they had wetlands and nature areas, instead of running through them, they're going to bridge over them, and they're elongating the bridges to cover like that. It's also they did the same thing for animal crossings, so that they can elongate the bridges so that animals have a lot more room to come out. And if the road's elevated the way it shows, they're not going to go up the hill. They'll go through the opening, hopefully. So there were some things like that they did. I'll just comment on the gentleman that talked about the interchange halfway through up down in their industrial thing. If you remember, we had an interchange there, and it was a Route 45 connector, and the world came down that we don't want that connector. When they took the connector out, the criteria wasn't there for the exchange. So the only way you can get exchange there is to put the connector in. So that's why I didn't say anything earlier, because I didn't want to start an argument. But technically, when they took that Route 45 connector out, the reason for that interchange left. So that's why it's goes straight from Potter's Mills to Bollesburg now. There will be no interchange in the middle.
The gentleman that spoke.
Yeah, he was I spoke to him up at.
He owns the land where that connector was going.
The farm, it would have went right by his farm. The connector would have went right by his farm. But that being said, now they're coming, and Potter Township had more we don't want it than anybody, but now they want one. But bottom line is, I don't think PennDOT's going to put that in. The only thing right now that I'm thinking about and worrying about is, if you remember, several years ago, Governor Wolf came up here and said, I'm going to give you $700 or $800 million to build this road. He's not in office anymore, guys. So we're still in the same situation we were in 2002, 3, 4, and I'm just holding my breath that they don't pull the money at the end, at the last minute, which they did last time. Now one of the differences this time is we've already allocated and spent out of our tip $20 million to do all this that's been going on, the Pell study and all this. So we've already put money in the game, and that's how we got the interchange down at Interstate 80 and 99, because we put money in it early on, and that's how we got that money to do that. So hopefully we're in the same ballpark right now that we won't. And I envision them putting it in in steps. Okay, because they're gonna probably make the existing road will be the same access road going down through. It'll weave in and out under the bridges. I anticipate they're gonna start working on maybe building some bridges and redirecting 322 and getting that done so that they don't have to stop traffic over the long haul. So I do look at becoming in increments, and again, hopefully they just stay on it till it's done. But and right now, 2035 is what they're saying. So, which I would like to have it sooner than that, but that looks like what they're saying it's gonna be. Anyway, that brings me to MPO, which we met this last month, and most of what we did in MPO was we talked about one of the things we have to do is we have to long-range transportation plan, project committee, safe streets for all those things we have studies in, and they're all on ongoing, and we usually get updates on those. So there's not a lot there that, is earth-shaking. Subcommittee updates and active transportation, all that's going on. MPO's doing fine. I gave Mark a document we have which has all the MPO grants that are available. One of the things that happened with MPOs last year, when we did our strategic plan, we recognized with the new federal, when they did the Bill Act last time, one of the things that act did for getting money, there's a lot of requirements, studies, and all those things. So when we looked at how much we would need to get that money, we figured we would have had to add 3.5 people. So, excuse me, what we did is we added one, and that's a grant writer. So we wrote a grant, we brought a grant writer in, then we put some money in the budget to pay for other consultants that can do the other part of it. And that's kind of the way we compromised, so we wouldn't have to pay for 3.5 people. And to this day, we just got 2 grants for about 100 and, I don't remember how much it was. It's more than we're paying her. So we really recouped that money several times since we added the grant writer. So that system's going really well. And we are seeing money, we're leveraging monies from all the time. And she gave a whole list of grants that we can look at from the township. She will help us write them, help us get them approved. So that's kind of where we're at. MPO, everything's going fine there, and we'll just keep rolling with that one. So that's all I have.
All right, thanks. You're up, Tracy.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, Dorothy, please go up to the mic.
Oh, sorry, Dorothy, I would have listened to you.
I was at that meeting and on the road, and I was impressed because I had made comments and put them in to both the highway committee and the thing is that the road is very narrow, and they're using as little space as they can. That's one really good thing. The second one is that, there is one road and it doesn't stop, right? And you can't get on and off. And I think that is very wise. And they're keeping the speed limit at 55. Well, at least you can arrest people, you can give them a ticket, and there might be some way of slowing them down, but it's a lot different than having an interstate that bombs off of, goes through town and then comes down here. I thought they did a lot to try to make that a much, to sort of, it was a nod to the historic nature of the place, that it's a slower road. It's not an in-your-face road. It doesn't have big green clover leaves coming off at various places. I felt that they had really tried. I was impressed.
Yeah, they did do a good job like that. Then they took all the comments from the community and actually evaluated them all and tried to incorporate them in.
The fact that it's only 24 feet wide, the whole thing, I think.
The whole road depends. The difference will be in the barrier in the middle. Instead of having that wide grassy area, they'll just have the concrete barrier.
Exactly.
And I think that's 9 feet versus 24 feet. So that's the difference. You're going to see a lot narrower.
It's not even, I don't even think it's 9 feet. But I could be wrong. So,
Well, and
anyway,
like
I
I-
was pleased.
Yeah, so yeah, you all right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You okay?
Is your microphone okay? I got my feet tangled up.
Are you sure? You sure? Here, we gave this young lady, she'll take care of it.
Yeah, is it okay?
Yes, it's fine.
How's that little splash?
That works. I think we can move on now.
All right, Tracy, facilities and public safety.
I'll say I've been a little remiss because this last few weeks have been absolute hell for me. But the meetings, generally, there was a reclassification of the facilities person in charge from administrator to manager because the qualifications, his qualifications are much more than the position of an administrator is needed, and they lowered the qualifications to administrator before because we were having troubles finding somebody. So they reclassified it, and they're moving that salary up to the proper level of a manager. So that was the big thing. And other than that, things are coming along swimmingly, which, I mean, really they are. And they are. I mean, they're coming up with nice plans and nice ideas of what's happening and organizing things nicely. So there was a lot of discussion about that, and but like I said, I'm a little remiss this month anyway. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, thanks.
Graduation did me in,
Yeah.
literally.
All right. Okay, one more item on the agenda.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Okay.
I'm good at that one.
We are adjourned.
Have a good one.